Hello there and welcome to another live chapter reading for Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Today I shall be reading from Night Fire, Smoke and Mirrors, Night Fire Book 3 by C.L. Schneider. Prologue. There is no such thing as monsters, there's no such thing as monsters. With each silent affirmation William bluntly ran faster. There's no such thing as monsters. Mum said she promised, he thought every night when he was little, and he believed her. For 12 years he believed her, until he moved here. Here in Sentinel City, monsters were everywhere. They skulked in the alleys and the school hallways waiting to trip you. They lurked in the locker room to hide your clothes, waited in the cafeteria to steal your lunch. Sometimes they lingered outside the library to slash the tyres on your bike. William tried not to look back. He didn't want to see their red eyes behind him, glowing in the fading light. Halloween was still a week away, and they were only wearing the mask to scare him. More than anything, William wished it wasn't working. Daring a glance, his eyes widened. The monsters were closing in, riding down the centre of the dark street. He couldn't outrun them on foot, and they wouldn't give up. The four had set their sights on William his first day, calling him names and knocking his books off his desk. He hated it here, his stupid new school, his mum's stupid new job, his new home with the creaky old floors 2 blocks from the murder house. She said, give it time. But it had been 3 weeks, and every day it just got worse. Billy! Billy, one of the boys hollered. Where you going, Billy Butley? Recognising Gary's voice behind one of the masks, William glanced again, shouting, It's William, asshole, William Bluntly. William Bluntly. What did you call me? Gary thundered. Another boy chimed in, laughing. Hey guys, the little Billy knows a curse word. Where'd you learn that, Butley? Babies don't know curse words. Exhausted and his legs trembling, William couldn't run any faster. He needed to get off the street, somewhere their bikes couldn't follow. He needed a place to hide. Jumping a hedge, he pushed through the dripping bushes, crossed a shadowy backyard, and ran through another, sliding on wet leaves, sinking in puddles up to his ankles. By the time William wound his way back out to the street, he was soaked. Everything was soaked. Storms had pounded the city for days. This afternoon, when the rain finally died into a fine mist, William had grabbed his bike and headed to the library. Many of the streets were still flooded, limbs and power lines were down, and he had to ride 4 blocks out of his way, but the library was the only sanctuary he had found in this horrible place, and it was worth getting wet for. William turned a corner into the cul-de-sac ahead. Behind a white fence was the house all the other kids talked about. Legend said over the summer a cult of devil worshippers killed the family that lived there, nailing their bodies to the floor in the shape of a pentagram. Sometimes on a quiet night you could hear them screaming. Everyone was afraid of the murder house. But William's greatest fear was behind him, not in front, even if the windows did stare back at him like wild, dark eyes. Out of breath, his stomach aching as he coughed on the chilly evening air, he eyed the house again. Chloe Tompkins said the killers were still there, hiding in the basement with the demon they summoned the night the Chandler family died. Noah Bailey claimed his older brother knew someone who broke in to see if it was true, and never came home. Lucia, who sat behind him in math, insisted the place was haunted by the little girl who lived there. The murder house was just one of the crazy stories William had heard. A kid in gym had a picture he claimed was of a mutant trashing his neighbour's car. Even his history teacher said the urban legends here were more than legends. William wasn't sure he believed it, but he did know one thing. No one would ever look for him in the murder house. Not even Gary. The front door was ajar. William stared at it, heart pounding. He looked at the street. It was quiet. There was no sign of Gary and his friends. Maybe they were still looking, or they were trying to beat him home. Either way, he didn't have to go in, but if he survived the murder house, it would change everything. No one would tease him anymore. Bolting up the walkway, he took the steps 2 at a time and slipped inside. The dark was thick and quiet. The air was freezing, colder even than the outside, and it smelled. Ew, William covered his nose against the foul stench. Is this what murder smells like? Wanting light, he reached for his cell phone, but his pockets were empty. Panic swept a chill up his arms as William remembered where it was. Like always, he turned his phone off and put it away when he got to the library. The boys had been hiding across the street, waiting for him to come out and see his busted tyres. When he started throwing rocks, he ran the other way, leaving his backpack, with his phone inside, on the ground beside his bike. He didn't like the dark, but William was more worried about proving he was here. If he couldn't take a picture, he'd have to take something else, a toy or a family photo. Putting a hand on the wall, he felt his way through the vacant house. William didn't believe there was a cult or a demon in the basement. It was far too quiet for that. But ghosts, William knew those were real. His mum hated when he said so, but he felt things. He always had. Like when his grandma came to visit from time to time. William never saw her. She passed away when he was 3, but he knew when she was there. He smelled chocolate chip cookies baking when the oven wasn't on. He sensed the warmth of her presence. Even though he hardly knew her before she died, and if he stood real still, William could feel her arms wrap around him in a hug. He sensed ghosts in other places too, but this house was different. Whatever was here, it wasn't interested in hugs. There were so many shadows, so many shapes he couldn't identify. A hint of light caught his eye, and hurrying towards it, William's gait slowed at the threshold of the living room. The odour was worse here, like something was rotting. This is where they died. He found the light. Street lamps were coming on outside. Their glow was leaking in through the blinds in the picture window. It was faint, but it softened the pinch in his stomach. Another light came on. Another glow. Better, he thought. If only he wasn't so wet and cold. Teeth chattering and barely able to work the zipper, William took off his coat to let it dry. His waterlogged shoes and socks came off next. As he dropped them to the floor, he noticed a shape in the centre of the room. It was lumpy, like a pile of blankets. The hope of warmth coaxing him in. He wavered at the pattern of the dark splotches on the carpet. William had never seen bloodstains before. Staring at the spots, one for the mother, one for the boy, and one for the little girl, William followed the curves, imagining them as dry puddles of spilled juice on a pale rug. His throat clogged. This house wasn't just scary, it was sad. There were other blacker stains on the floor and creeping up the walls. Noah said the bodies were burned, but William had seen scorch marks last year when a house caught fire in his neighbourhood. They had no depth. These did, uneven, thick and jagged, like they were shaped more like moulds and fungus they stood in his science class. Still shivering, he eyed the lump in the centre. It didn't look like blankets anymore. William glanced back into the hall. He wanted to leave. Screw Gary. The room felt like winter and smelled of month-old garbage, but if it wasn't blankets on the floor, what was it? Curiosity pulled him closer, and the floor creaked beneath his bare feet. Boards groaned like a tired old man as William stepped around the wide patches of mould. There was more than he realised, probably more than he could see, with the heavy shadows still in the room. He jumped to a clean area, landing the carpet, dipped under his weight, as if the boards were soggy underneath. William cheated as he squatted behind his find. Gross, he whispered. It was a dead animal, half of one at least. The body, lying on its side, was the right size for a fox or a medium-sized dog. But it wasn't either. The long front limbs were decayed down to the bone. The chest and stomach were open and empty with nothing inside but thick layers of the same black gunk layering the carpet. Something had stripped the hide and fur from the animal's head, exposing a wide skull underneath. The eye sockets were barely slits, sitting over a slender snout. Tusks curled off the ends. William had never seen anything like it. Awesome, he muttered, then with more worry. What are you? Black pieces of something were spinning off over the black half. They shimmered a bit, like glass, obscuring the weird animal's hind legs in the shadow. The darkness was so thick, it was like the limbs weren't even there, like they'd disappeared, like they were invisible. It can't be. William had read about things like the Derva demon, Mothman and Chupacabra. If the legends in Sentinel City were true, maybe he'd found something like that, but he didn't remember reading about any creatures that turned invisible. Extending a trembling hand over the body, as he reached the dark spinning objects, his hand passed through a breath of frigid air and vanished. William jerked back with an excited "Whoa!" Enthralled in a pulse pounding in his ears, he thrust his hand in a second time, extending it further. He felt around, his fingers brushed the animal's bony back legs. There was something under it, something that didn't feel like carpet. A sharp icy tingle ripped at his hand, and William pulled his arm back, and the breath died in his throat. Even in the faint light, the black was visible on his fingers. The same mouldy stuff on the carpet, and the creature's body was on him now. He tried to shake it off, but it was burning, crawling, spreading. Pain wormed in under his skin. Crying out, scrambling back, William lost balance and tumbled over into the coffee table. His head struck the edge and a crushing wave of hot pain rippled out, dulling the cold as he fell. lying in the black, vision greying, his hand burning, the echo of a little girl's laughter zipped past William's ear. The rotting stench in the room waned, replaced by the sweet aroma of bubblegum. He breathed it in gratefully as he closed his eyes, cradled in the warmth of his own blood as it puddled out to join the stains on the carpet. I hope you enjoyed this chapter reading and that you'll go check out the book. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.